All right, let's now move on to the second part of In the Headlines, so we get to have a look at what the dailies have for us today. A copy of the Daily Nation is what I have. The front page is mostly all political stories that have been captured here. Let me start you off with this interesting piece here concerning the Jubilee administration. According to a new report that was put out, the civil society finds that the current administration suppressed fundamental human rights and freedoms in the last 10 years. Let me quickly run you through what has been captured in this particular story. So, according to this particular report titled Missed Opportunities, that was released on Tuesday by Amnesty International, it indicated that Kenyatta's performance was below average in his 10-year tenure, saying that he failed to protect personal liberty, the constitutional rights to adequate housing, health and food for the citizens of Kenya. They also indicated that extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances also increased while the government agencies violated Kenyans' rights to privacy and data protection. It added that evicting thousands and thousands of Kenyans from their homes, the government violated their rights to housing and livelihood. Looking at the president's time in office, it was also marred by rampant corruption, wastage of public funds and excessive borrowing. And out of 72 points, they gave the Jubilee administration 33, which is translating to about a 46% score on the human rights scorecard, saying that the Jubilee administration did not meet the threshold for effective implementation while in office for the 10 years. Oof. They go on to break down those particular aspects that have been highlighted, 5 particular key areas. You can read more of that there. Coming to the next story concerning former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, where yesterday he was handed a lifeline in what could be his final opportunity, should that stand to maybe return back to government after having been ousted on the 3rd of December 2020. More details will be coming up. And finally, 10 counties to decide the winner. These are the key counties that will either determine whether Raila Odinga of the Azimio Coalition or Deputy President William Ruto of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance will be the top man on the 9th of August 2022. I will be giving you more details as per what has been captured in regards to this particular story. Mike.
Yes, and on the Star, in the headlines, presidential candidates Raila Odinga and William Ruto are combing through the country in a marathon campaign as the clock ticks to next month's polls. Recent opinion polls have suggested that none of the two leading contenders will secure the 50 plus 1% on the first round. So the two are dashing to avoid the drainage and the draining rerun that would occur, because it would be costlier. Still on the Star, former NHIF boss has failed to stop the 1.1 billion shilling corruption charges. More on that is Mwangi wanted the High Court to declare that the DPP is obligated to review the case after he withdrew charges against WebTribe Limited. More on that later on. Still on matters COVID-19, as we're all aware, we've been directed to, wear our masks whenever possible. And experts are saying that the sixth COVID-19 wave might be over sooner than expected. This makes it the shortest wave in the country. And of course, the data from the Ministry of Health also shows that the positivity rate has started to dip. The lowest rate of 4.2% was recorded on Monday. More on that later on. Last but not least, of course, the man of the hour is Mike Sonko. It's a win for him as IBC is ordered to clear him for Mombasa governor race. And of course, Justice Olga Sewe and Ongiti Onginjo, Stephen Githinji allowed Sonko's petition challenging the electoral agency's decision to disqualify him from the race, breaching Article 75 of the Constitution. More of that later on. Doreen.
All right, now, judges come to rescue of candidates entangled in integrity questions. We have seen this at least this past week with the likes of Johnson Sakaja, whereby his case was thrown away by the High Court, Karungo Thango, and the latest one being the former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko. But this decision of the courts has really not sat well with some sections of Kenyans. In fact, it has elicited mixed reactions, with some institutions now asking voters to reject these candidates at the ballot. But at the end of the day, it remains with you and I in respect to whom we are going to vote come August 9th. Also, still the story concerning Mike Sonko obviously would find its way on this particular daily. That is why Sonko court victory is a political game changer. But we just want to take a very quick breather. When we return, I'll tell you why and how this daily has covered the story issue concerning Mike Sonko. Time for that breather. Stay with us. Welcome back. We continue with what the dailies are holding for you this Thursday morning, and back to the People Daily with the main read being why Sonko court victory is a political game changer. Remember that yesterday the courts overturned that particular ruling by what IBC had previously said in respect to former governor, that is Mike Mbuvi Sonko. And just going by what the High Court mentioned yesterday in respect to that impeachment, remember that initially IBC had barred Mike Sonko because of the impeachment that had been spearheaded by the members of the County Assembly as well as the Senate over gross misconduct. But as it turns out, from what the High Court mentioned, is that that was not correct, because also according to the Constitution, that one is actually innocent until proven guilty. And there's an extension to that particular section of the Constitution, which actually says that an individual or a leader, anyone of that kind, so to speak, needs or can exhaust all forms of appeal. And as it stands, the case against Sonko is still at the Supreme Court. So what that simply means is that he is still within the bounds of exhausting all forms of appeal. And up until the Supreme Court delivers that judgment, then he is not or cannot be barred from vying for any political seat. And this is why the High Court overturned, that ruling by the IBC, so to speak. So this is why, Governor Sonko also got a lifeline. But the question is, how does this change the political metrics in Mombasa County, given the fact that we still have Nasir of ODM who's still vying for that same position? Right now we have former Governor Sonko, who's just again entered into the race. Again, as we said, time will tell. Now, undecided voters hold key to State House. This is just a latest report that was released by Infotrack, which indicates that 16% of potential voters are yet to make up their mind, according to that particular survey. Again, also what came to the fore on the same survey is the various strongholds for the main two candidates, that is Raila Odinga and Ruto. Raila having about 21 out of the possible 47 counties being the areas that really commands much support, and for Ruto that is 16. That is 16 counties out of the possible 47 counties. The battlegrounds remaining to be 10 counties, whereby for one to actually clinch that seat, this is some of the areas in which they need to see how they're going to garner votes. And also what came to the fore in this report that was released by Infotrack is that, unlike the previous surveys, as they mentioned, is that men are now the most undecided at 53%, and this indecision has also been linked to the battlegrounds. The ones that I've mentioned, those are the 10 battlegrounds, key among them being Mombasa, Tana River, Marsabit, Isiolo, Samburu, as well as Nakuru. And to some bit of international news, That is Sri Lanka leader, that is Rajapaksa, now flees the country. This is just the latest report coming from that particular island. And even in his absence, he has appointed Prime Minister Ranil, who will be acting as president in his absence. Remember that this happened just this past weekend, Saturday to be specific, whereby there were protests from citizens in that particular island over various issues that have been facing the country there, key among them being economic crisis that has been witnessed over time in Sri Lanka. Regina.
A sneak peek, that particular story from Sri Lanka indeed is on the front page of this particular daily, being the Standard, 25 days to the next general election. And Sri Lanka is actually broke. And there were talks, I think 2-3 years back, in regard to the debt that this particular country owed China. Yes, and now it is cash-strapped in debt, and anarchy reigns in Sri Lanka. We'll keep tabs on that. Now, front page is talking about the deal, inside the deal that brought Sonko back. Yes? Comeback key, that's what the scribe has opted to go with this morning. He was a black sheep, ostracized and hounded out of office. Now, former Governor Mike Sonko has flown back into the waiting arms of President Kenyatta and Azimio ticket flag bearers Odinga and Karua. So what is in the bargain? And will Sonko deliver Mombasa and Nairobi? As you ponder on that, it's quite rhetoric. Remember, Sonko now has been cleared to vie for the Mombasa gubernatorial seat. He'll be vying on a Wiper Party ticket, and he's going to be battling it out with ODM's Abdulswamad Nasir and Hassan Omar of UDA, among others, who are interested in that particular seat. Quoted in this particular daily, we have Babu Owino, who is the Embakasi East Member of Parliament, and he said, Politicus has no permanent enemies. Sonko's issue was with the President, Uhuru, and the way they were interacting, there is no longer an issue. Well, we'll wait and see. What does Sonko's return mean to competitors? That's the question of the day, given that particular development from the courts. Now, also there have been questions over the award of Kim Keith's tender by IEBC. We were live, it was a joint interview, so to speak, with the Electoral Boundaries Commission officials, including the chair himself there, Wafula Chebukati. And the question was, why did they settle, or why did IEBC settle on a supplier whose kits had reportedly failed during the elections in Uganda and other countries? Also on the front page is the case of 100 meters record holder, African record holder, that is Ferdinand Omanyala. Before going to print, and also before we broadcast that story, he was still stuck here in Nairobi. He's set to participate in the Oregon Games that are to be televised by KBC Channel 1 on Friday. And he's exuded a lot of confidence, yet he hasn't gotten feedback in regard to his U.S. visa. It is the 14th of July, and we know what happens. We have a fuel review. Now, there's an interesting article here that indeed spells doom. Why? We have a dollar shortage, and inside sources indicate that importers of oil consignments need to be paid in US dollars, but their shortage could cause a delay in the clearing of payments and in turn affect oil marketers' access to the products. So there might be a fuel shortage looming. On top of that, by end of day today, we'll know if the fuel prices are to go up. In its latest review, EPRA increased the prices of fuel by 9 shillings across board, and sources are already showing that actually it might increase by another 10 shillings. Why? Because of the high prices of mobane that touched a high of 13,924 shillings per barrel in the last 1 month to an average of around 13,216 shillings per barrel in May. sources, but we will know, Msema Kweli, by end of day today as we wait for that particular report. That notwithstanding, fuel prices might come up by a cool 10 bob, but saying we're just speculating given what is happening within the industry. And the government, yes, is going to be utilizing its subsidy, actually cushioning consumers by a cool 40 shillings a litre through the subsidy. And government has been saying that this subsidy is not sustainable in the long run, given the numbers, or rather, the mathematics there, because it collects around 2 billion. That is according to the Ministry of Petroleum. In the past, the subsidy is, it collects around 2 billion per month, yes, through the PDL. Then, it has been spending an average of 4 billion per month and as high as 8.5 billion as fuel prices have been going up sharply, which means the government had to subsidize by huge margins. By end of day, we will know where we lie in as far as fuel prices are concerned, and this is bound to continue having a trickle effect in the cost of living as we know it. Remember, we are doing 159 a litre of super petrol in Nairobi. This might actually go up by a cool 10 shillings, making it an all-time high of around 169, 170 a litre, but that's just being speculative. By end of day, we will know where we stand in regard to this issue. Mike, to you.
Yes, and back to the man of the hour, Mike Sonko. Let's just take a quick recap of the events that followed to his victory win on Wednesday. In his petition filed on June 23rd, Sonko asked the court to stop IEBC from gazetting the candidates for the governor race, printing ballot papers, and stopping Wiper from nominating another candidate. On June 7th, IEBC Mombasa County returning officers Swalha Ibrahim disqualified Sonko on the basis that he had failed to present an original certified degree certificate and stamped clearance certificates from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Ibrahim also said that Sonko had breached Article 75 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which led to his impeachment as Nairobi governor in December 2020. On Wednesday morning, the three-judge bench that was hearing Sonko's petition ruled in his favor. In their one-hour judgment, Sewe Onyinjo and Gidinji said IEBC violated the rights of the petitioner. The court also said that IEBC violated the Constitution. So, those events, hopefully they may turn out how people wanted them to. Or what do you think?
Of course, it's a happy day for Mike Sonko. Just to add to what you said, they go on to say that the court ruled that the electoral agency abdicated and violated Articles 3, Article 10, Article 47, Article 49, and Article 59 of the Constitution by discriminating against Mike Sonko's candidature when he has an appeal at the Supreme Court without any legal explanation. So since the 3rd of December 2020, when, quote unquote, he was sent out in the cold, politically speaking, he is back now from county 047 to 001. Deals with extremes.
Now it's up to the voters. Yeah, still on the star before we move on to Jane. We were discussing this week's campaigns between Azimio leader Raila Odinga and, of course, the Deputy President William Ruto. And, of course, we mentioned that they visited several counties. Last week alone, Ruto traversed a record 12 counties. The Deputy President has been to Marsabit, Laikipia, Nakuru, Turkana, Bungoma, Kakamega, Trans Nzoia, Busia, Vihiga, Nyamira, and Kisii. In 1 week alone, Raila has toured 9 counties. And, of course, these are Nyeri, Kiambu, Kirinyaga, Narok, Kakamega, Bomet, Kericho, Taita, Taveta, and Kwale. The ODM leader is expected to pitch tent in Mombasa today. And, of course, last weekend, Raila Odinga stormed Bomet, Kericho, which are also strongholds for Ruto's support base. Jane.
Now, still looking at that particular story concerning the campaign trail, focusing on the two main presidential candidates, that is Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto, there is a particular piece here that was done pulled off the survey that was conducted by Infotrack, looking at 10 counties that are perceived to be the battlegrounds for the two presidential candidates. They have gone on to list these counties that include Mombasa, Tana River, Marsabit, Isiolo, Narok, Samburu, Nakuru, Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, and Vihiga, that collectively have a total vote count of 3.6 million Kenya shillings, 3.6 million votes. And these are the areas that the two presidential candidates are really fighting to secure the vote. As we speak, yesterday, former Premier Raila Odinga embarked on coastal tour for a week in the coastal region to just reinforce his strongholds, while the deputy president is on a 5-day tour in Western, also in line with just securing the votes in these particular areas. But according to this report, should the elections be held today, Mr. Odinga would garner 43%. That translates to 9.4 million votes, and the deputy president would garner 37%, translating to 8.1 million votes. So you can read more of that here. It's sad that they haven't indicated what the other two presidential aspirants would garner should the elections be conducted today. Now, as we bring this segment to a close, of course, the presidential debate secretariat had pointed out that the two remaining debates are set to happen next week, and the presidential debate on the week after, and that more details have been captured here. You can be able to read to just know what to expect on Tuesday the 19th, when we'll be having the deputy presidential debate, running mates debate, that will be happening next week on Tuesday. Well, that brings us to a close. Yeah. All right. So we have so much more lined up for you. Remember, this is Entertainment Thursday. We hope you stay with us through and through as we run you through what we have lined up for you today. #Good Morning Kenya. Stay with us. We'll be right back.